If you have been a part of the Pokemon community for even a day, you have probably seen someone post a Rate My Team or RMT on Smogon or Reddit or whatever Discord you are part of. Every single new player does it. I did it 15 years ago on my first Smogon post, and back in the day, we got told to lurk more. Of course, since then, I think we've learned that we should be helpful to newer players, which is kind of what my channel is all about. But this video specifically is probably the best advice that you are ever going to get. So, if you ask for an RMT in my Twitch stream, or if I see you post your team in a Discord with absolutely no context, then I have probably linked you this video. And I encourage others to do the same because this video is about how to team build and how to ask for advice effectively. And this is how I actually prepare for tournaments like the Pokemon World Championships. So, first and foremost, you have to play games with your team. No one, and I mean no one, wants to talk about your team unless you have played at least 10 to 20 games with it, because you will quickly figure out the problems on your own. And you should try to make adjustments to fix those problems on the fly as you go. I heavily recommend that you save your replays when you are testing. There's no reason not to. It's absolutely free. And a lot of times, just watching the replays of your losses will tell you what adjustments you need to make, either for your team or your game plans. Now, I know some people like practicing on Battle Stadium, but team building really comes down to making adjustments, and that is so much harder to do on cartridge. You also can't save your replays, and that is the easiest way of figuring out what is wrong and what is going right with your team, and what adjustments you have to make as a result. Now, I am a huge nerd, so I want to look at data. And what I use, and what I think most top players use at this point, is a tool called PassRS, which is made by BauerDad, and I'll link it in the description, of course. This is not sponsored or anything. I mean this genuinely. This is what I use to team build. Like, you just put all your replays here, and it aggregates the data and generates plots to show you how often you bring each Pokemon, each move, which Pokemon you terrestrialize, and all that stuff. It tells you what you're losing to as well. So you can see here, these are all the replays that for my Electabuzz team that Alex used to get 12th at the North American Championships, and I used to get top 64 at the North American Championships. It makes it abundantly clear what the strengths and weaknesses of the team are. And if I want to replace a Pokemon, I can see which ones have the worst win rate, or which ones are actually brought the least. Or maybe I can fix the matchup by committing a Terra type on a Pokemon that isn't using its Terra very much. For example, we actually changed the Terra type on the Farigiraf on this team to Terra Ground with Terra Blast because it would help the Miraidon matchup that we were struggling with. Once the team is more refined, it also lets you know what you have and haven't played against on ladder, and therefore what you might need a little more practice against. But you were asking for advice, and that is awesome because that is how you get better at team building. I think that everyone needs someone to talk to and bounce ideas off of while they're team building, and you should absolutely ask for advice in Discord servers or Twitch or Reddit or whatever social media that you use. And if you're going to pay for coaching, this is also how you get your money's worth out of coaching, because hopefully you've already played 20, 30, 50 games with your team, and you already know what you're losing to. And if you tell a coach or just your friend, hey, here's my team, here is what I am struggling against, and here are some replays of me playing against it. Also, I think this Pokemon on my team is expendable. And if you say that, you will get the best advice of your life, and you will get the best value for money out of coaching. Because the truth is, if you half-ass it and you don't look like you're invested in your team, why would anyone else want to spend their time on it? So, do this and show that you're invested in your team, and you make it easy for people to help you, and you will get better quicker, and your team will get better quicker. It's really that simple. The one other thing that people often ask me about is EV spreads. And the truth is, they don't matter as much as you think they do. You could start with whatever you want, and my best advice is, just like team building, make adjustments as you go. However, I do have some tricks that I use to make EV spreads as starting points. First and foremost, the speed stat is the most important stat for every Pokemon, and it really depends on what type of speed control you have on the team and what kind of Pokemon you want to outspeed, and also what the speed of your other Pokemon are as well. Remember that Electabuzz Trick Room team that I used at Nats? Well, that team had a few Pokemon that were one speed point apart from each other, which means that the combos that you have always go off in sequence. And it also means that if one of your Pokemon outspeeds an opponent, then the other ones likely are going to as well, which lets you check your speed tiers for your sweepers. So in this example, let's say we have a Blood Moon with Tailwind on the team, and we want to outspeed Mousehold in Tailwind, so we want to hit 90 speed. The second step is for whatever stat your nature is boosting, you want that stat to be divisible by 11. And here you see that's because you get, at that number, you get 2 additional points instead of the 1 that you would get for the additional 8 EVs that you invested. This is called a jump point, or 11N. You'll see that mentioned in team reports quite often. For the HP stat, if you have a Rillaboom, you usually want that stat to be divisible by 16 to maximize grassy terrain recovery or leftovers recovery whenever you can. But also, if you have a Tyranitar on the team, or you bring the Pokemon into Tyranitar often, then you probably want it to be 1 point less than a multiple of 16 to take 1 point less from Sandstorm Chip. Also, if you have a Life Orb, ideally your stat is 1 point less than a multiple of 10 to take less Life Orb Chip. I'll then put the remaining EVs in the weaker defense, and the last 4 in the stronger defense, and you've got an EV spread that looks really good. And it's also probably not the best fit for your team. The most important thing, more than any of that, is making adjustments as you go and understanding the context in which your Pokemon are often brought into battle. If there's an attack that you expect to survive but you didn't, you can go to the damage calculator and you can figure out how much more investment you would need to survive the attack. This is especially useful if you have the replay data, because you can confidently say things like, I keep losing to Hydreigon, and I bring this Pokemon versus Hydreigon most of the time. I should change my EV spread to survive a Draco Meteor. Alternatively, maybe you expected to outspeed something and you didn't. Well, then you might want to go a little faster. And if you want to speed creep everyone, well, I've got a tool for you. And it's what I call the dynamic speed tiers. It gathers data from last month's usage stats, and it shows you exactly what speed stats are most common on each Pokemon and in aggregate as well. At Los Angeles Regionals, I used this to pick my speed stats, and it basically, my entire tournament run, my Pokemon were a point or 2 faster than my opponents. Every single match, it felt like I was outspeeding things I had no business outspeeding. And if you want access to this data, it's available exclusively to my channel members. You could also subscribe. That'd be pretty cool too. I mean, I basically gave you the entire process of how I built the team that I used to get top 4 at Los Angeles Regionals. And as an adult with responsibilities and also a YouTube channel, I have had to make an effort over the last few years to streamline my team building process as much as possible. And this is basically what I've come up with. It's very straightforward and it works very effectively. I can figure out exactly what I need help with and exactly what I can change. And I can figure out what I haven't played against yet, so I know what to test against and maybe what I might be undercompensating for. And then beyond that, I also get great advice from my friends over at Tub Nation, because they know exactly what I need help beating. And also, on top of all of that, my EV spreads basically build themselves. So I hope you learned something from this video. And the next time you make a post asking for someone to rate your team, I hope you get some actual good advice and not just a 5-minute rant about how to team build better.